Today's story is about second chances, forgiveness, and the quiet kind of love that heals what's been broken. Let's begin. Autumn light filtered through the tall glass windows of a penthouse in the heart of Manhattan, casting a golden hue on white walls with the faint gentleness of a day's final breath. The room was quiet, the ticking clock the only sound, marking time that could no longer be held back. Vivian Carter, an elegant woman who had spent a lifetime among the elite, sat reclined in a velvet armchair near the window. Her silver hair was neatly pinned, her frail hands trembling as they gripped the brass armrest. She knew her heart didn't have much time left, but her eyes still held a determined gleam, the final will of a grandmother preparing to say goodbye. Before her stood two young souls, Liam Carter, her grandson, a successful CEO with a demeanor cold as first snow, and Eleanor Brooks, the orphaned girl she had raised and loved like her own. "Liam, I know this isn't what you want." Vivian's voice was thin but unwavering. "But if I could carry one wish with me, it's that you marry Eleanor. She's a good girl. I believe she'll bring you happiness." Liam didn't turn. His icy blue gaze stayed fixed on the bustling skyline beyond the window. "If that's what you need to rest in peace, I'll do it," he murmured. "But don't expect love." Eleanor gently clasped her hands in her lap, her deep brown eyes fixed on the woman who had given her a second chance at life. She nodded silently, gratitude outweighing fear. Their marriage would not begin with love, but with a final promise to someone about to leave the world. 5 years ago, in a rainy October, Brooklyn drowned in cold winds and waterlogged streets that seemed to cry for someone who could no longer weep. At that time, Eleanor was only 20, a young art student living in a cramped attic studio, full of dreams and shadows. Life wasn't kind. She worked at a coffee shop, painted late into the night to sell her work and pay for rent and tuition. But in those gray, rainy days, fate sent her a glimmer of warmth. Ethan James, a young engineer with a kind smile, a quick wit, and laughter in his eyes. He was Liam Carter's best friend from college, though Eleanor didn't know that when they first met at a modest art exhibition she'd organized. Ethan was the first person to buy one of her paintings, a field of flowers beneath a stormy sky. From that moment on, he began visiting her tiny apartment, bringing sandwiches, coffee, and lighthearted stories from his engineering firm. To Eleanor, he was the sun breaking through endless winter. Their love grew, quietly, deeply, two broken souls finding comfort in each other. Eleanor believed Ethan was the man she'd marry, the one she'd build a life with, a house with a garden, laughter echoing through rooms filled with stories and color. Until one night shattered it all. It was pouring. Eleanor had just finished a painting and wrapped it as an early birthday gift for Ethan. She arrived at his apartment, heart fluttering, but when the door opened, Ethan and a woman she'd never seen before were in bed, tangled in each other's arms, bare skin against sheets. Eleanor stood frozen, the gift still in her hands. She didn't scream. She didn't step inside. She simply let the painting fall to the wet floor and turned away into the storm. Ethan heard the sound, panic in his voice as he ran after her, throwing on a shirt. "Eleanor, wait! It's not what it looks like." But she didn't need to hear more. Ethan ran after her, calling her name, but Eleanor never looked back. Her heart had already closed. The next morning, she sent one final message. "Don't look for me. It's over." She shut off her phone, locked her door, and cried herself to sleep, surrounded by unfinished paintings. 2 days later, Ethan died in a drunk driving accident. The news reached Liam Carter, who had always seen Ethan as a brother. He found Eleanor's last message, listened to their friends describe Ethan's despair, and made his own judgment, that Eleanor had abandoned his best friend, pushing him into death. From that moment on, Liam vowed never to forgive her. The wedding took place on a gray winter morning, under the pale, heavy sky of New York. There were no fresh flowers, no laughter, no family warmth. Only unfamiliar glances and indifferent expressions from guests who came out of obligation. Eleanor wore a simple white dress, chosen by Vivian before she passed. In her hands was a bouquet of white carnations, Vivian's favorite flower. Beside her, Liam stood tall in a black suit, eyes devoid of emotion. When the priest declared them husband and wife, He didn't kiss her, didn't even glance her way, just turned as if he'd completed an unwanted task. After the ceremony, they moved into the Carter penthouse, a grand, expansive space that once belonged to Vivian, but the home now felt like a tomb, cold and echoing with silence. Eleanor hoped that by living together, Liam's icy walls might eventually thaw. She woke early to prepare breakfast, lit scented candles, brewed tea. She tried to bring warmth into a house that rejected it. But all she received was his cold stare and sharper words. One morning, she placed toasted bread and soft-boiled eggs on the table. Liam walked in, glanced at the spread, and smirked. "You think little tricks like these will soften me? Don't pretend to be kind. I don't need it." He pulled out a chair, then pushed it back in without sitting. He left, untouched. Eleanor stood there, hands gripping the table's edge until her knuckles turned pale. Day by day, Liam treated her like a ghost in his own home. He never said her name, never met her gaze. When forced to speak, his tone was clipped and icy. "What are you doing here?" or "Don't bother me." One evening, she accidentally dropped a glass in the kitchen. The crash echoed. Liam entered from the living room, his eyes scanning the shards on the floor, then settling on her like she was a stain. "Pathetic, you can't even hold a glass. I don't know why she chose you." Eleanor knelt, picking up the glass with trembling hands. She said nothing. She knew that words only fueled his fury. Silence was her shield, the only dignity she had left. Late one night, she brought a tray of tea to his study, hoping maybe, just once, to ease his stress. Liam shoved the tray aside, his voice cutting. "What do you want, money? Attention? Don't think I don't know who you are." Eleanor bowed her head and left. She didn't do these things to win him over. She did them because of Vivian, because she had promised to try, to keep this marriage from becoming complete hell. In her final months, Vivian quietly arranged to send money to Eleanor through her private attorney, a small gesture meant to help Eleanor continue her free art classes for children in the Bronx. But Eleanor never kept a cent. She instructed the lawyer to redirect every dollar to the Vivian Carter Foundation, asking for no credit, no acknowledgement, just quiet dignity. But Liam didn't know. One morning, he stumbled across a copy of a bank transfer in Vivian's study, labeled "Personal Support for Eleanor Brooks." His blood boiled. In that moment, it all clicked in his mind. Eleanor's quiet eyes, her polite smile, her attentiveness to Vivian, it was all a performance. She'd been manipulating his grandmother to steal from her behind closed doors. He didn't ask questions, didn't investigate. He let the fury fester, sharpening it like a blade, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came during Vivian's 85th birthday celebration. The penthouse was lit with soft chandeliers, music floated from a live ensemble, and guests mingled with champagne and practiced smiles. Relatives, old family friends, and key business partners filled the room. Eleanor wore a gentle emerald green dress, never leaving Vivian's side. Though her heart was heavy, she smiled, because she didn't want the woman who loved her like family to see the cracks. Then Vivian raised her glass and said warmly, "The greatest gift I've had in these final years is Eleanor. Thank you, dear, for being here for me, and for Liam." Applause followed, but Liam slammed his wine glass down. The sound was sharp, slicing through the air. He stepped into the center of the room. All eyes turned to him as he lifted a piece of paper. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can't let everyone be fooled any longer." He turned to Eleanor, voice cold as steel. "This woman, Eleanor Brooks, has been secretly accepting money from my grandmother. She pretends to live modestly, but she's nothing more than a shameless gold digger." Silence fell. Eyes shifted to Eleanor, some stunned, others murmuring with suspicion. She stood frozen in the middle of it all, unable to speak, unable to defend herself. After the storm of the birthday party, Vivian's health declined rapidly. Her heart attacks became more frequent and severe, confining her to the once sunny bedroom that now lay heavy in silence. Eleanor was the only one who remained by her side. She turned down all offers of help, choosing instead to sit quietly beside the bed, cooling Vivian's forehead during her feverish episodes, reading soft stories and reminiscing about the memories they'd shared. Despite the humiliation she had suffered, Eleanor didn't leave. She couldn't. She loved Vivian like the family she never had. One rainy afternoon, Vivian reached out with trembling fingers, gently grasping Eleanor's hand. Her lips, pale and dry, whispered, "Eleanor, don't give up on Liam. He may be blind, but he's not cruel. You're the only one who can bring him back to the light." Eleanor nodded through silent tears, though her heart felt too broken to promise anything. How could she save someone who only wanted to destroy her? Vivian gave a faint smile. Her eyes fluttering closed, her frail hands slipped from Eleanor's grasp like the final leaf falling in late autumn. She was gone. Quietly, gently, and in the arms of the girl she'd loved as her own. Not long after, Liam returned. He stepped into the room, his eyes freezing when he saw his grandmother's still figure. Beside the bed, Eleanor sat in silence, gently tucking the blanket over Vivian's chest with trembling hands. "She's," he whispered, breathless. Then his voice turned sharp with pain and accusation. "Are you satisfied now? She's dead. You don't have to pretend anymore." Eleanor said nothing. No tears, no defense, just silence. She placed a letter on the table, along with a signed divorce petition and a folder, documents proving she had returned every penny Vivian had ever given her. That night, Eleanor left the penthouse. She took nothing but her suitcase, her grief, and a promise she could no longer keep. A year had passed since Eleanor left and Vivian passed away. Autumn returned with golden leaves scattering across the quiet road leading to a cemetery on the outskirts of New York. Liam Carter walked slowly among the headstones, a bouquet of white chrysanthemums in one hand and a bottle of whiskey in the other, their college drink of choice. He stopped before a familiar grave. Ethan James, 1990, 2020. Memories surged, laughter, late-night basketball games, endless debates about love and life. "You still owe me a match," Liam murmured, placing the bottle gently at the base of the cold stone. But his heart wasn't still. Images of Eleanor, her silent eyes, the note she left behind. They haunted him more with each passing day. Then a voice behind him broke the silence. "You're Liam Carter, right?" He turned. A young woman stood a few steps away. Blonde hair, sad eyes, and a soft smile. He recognized her instantly. Sophie Miller. An old college acquaintance, once close to Ethan. "What are you doing here?" Liam asked, cautious. Sophie placed a bouquet of violets by the grave and sat down beside it. "I came to visit Ethan. He was my boyfriend, a few months before he died." Liam froze. "That's not possible. Ethan loved Eleanor. She was the only one he ever spoke to me about." Sophie looked up, voice trembling. "You don't know the truth. Ethan cheated on Eleanor, with me. She caught us that night, and she left. The message you saw came after her heart was already broken." The air around them thickened. Liam sat down slowly, numb. "I stayed silent because of guilt," Sophie continued. "But I can't let you live with this lie any longer. Eleanor wasn't who you thought she was." Liam stared at Ethan's gravestone, as if seeing it for the first time. A wave of pain slammed through him, sharp and suffocating. He had been wrong, utterly, painfully wrong. After that fateful encounter at the cemetery, Liam returned to the penthouse in the heart of New York, a space that once symbolized power and stability, now hollow and cold. He sat silently in his familiar leather chair, staring at the empty corner where Eleanor's easel used to stand. Memories flooded in, her early breakfasts, the cups of tea she brought to his study, the soft footfalls in the hallway at night. The gestures he once dismissed as manipulation now felt like ghosts he couldn't forget. Her letter still rested on the table. The words trembled across the page. "I'll set you free. Please live well." Reading it again, Liam felt a tight ache in his chest. Those weren't the words of a schemer. They were the quiet goodbye of someone who had loved deeply and left in despair. He couldn't let her vanish as if she never existed. Liam hired private investigators, dug through records, contacted anyone who might have known her, old professors, charity groups, former classmates, nothing. It was as if she had disappeared. 2 months passed in torment. Then, a fragile lead surfaced, a free art class for children in a coastal town called Haven Cove, over 300 miles away. The teacher went by Miss Lena. Brown hair, gentle eyes, distant smile. Without hesitation, Liam drove through the night. He arrived in Haven Cove just before dawn. Sea winds whipped through the streets, but his heart burned with urgency. At the local community center, through the window, he saw her. Eleanor, surrounded by laughing children, a paintbrush in hand, smiling softly. She was still there, still kind, still resilient, but when their eyes met through the glass, something flickered, and then she turned away. Not in hate, but in pain. Liam understood. This journey was only beginning. From the day Liam found Eleanor in Haven Cove, he stayed. No longer the cold-hearted CEO he once was, he settled into a small house near the community center. Each morning he came to help her set up the art class, wiping boards, fixing broken chairs, washing paintbrushes filled with color. Eleanor said little, and she did not forgive easily. But day by day, through every quiet, persistent action, she began to see that the man before her had changed. Then, one day, Eleanor fell ill. She developed a high fever, alone in her small apartment above the bakery. Liam was the first to notice, because every night, without fail, he stood beneath her window watching for the light. He ran to buy medicine, cooked porridge, and stayed by her side throughout the night. When Eleanor awoke amidst her fever, she felt her hand wrapped gently in his. "I haven't forgiven you," she murmured, her voice hoarse. "I know," Liam said, kneeling beside her. "But I'm not here to erase the past. I'm here to build something new, even if it takes a lifetime. I'll wait for your heart to open again." She looked into his eyes. No more coldness, only sincerity. And then they kissed, not a kiss of passion, but one of apology, a kiss of forgiveness, a kiss that marked the beginning of something new. Weeks later, on a quiet morning, they walked together along the beach. The waves lapped gently, the sand cool beneath their feet, and the sun slowly rose on the horizon. "I'm still scared," Eleanor said quietly, "that one day you'll push me away again, like before." Liam stopped walking. He turned to her and replied, "I can't change the past, but I can do everything so the future will never be like that again." She looked at him for a long moment, then stepped forward and placed his hand over her heart. "Then don't just say it, live it with me." He smiled, stepped forward, and took her hand. As the first light of the sun touched their shoulders, Eleanor leaned her head gently against his. And there, between the sea and the rising dawn, they kissed. No more resentment, no more distance, only love, gentle, mature, and finally beginning. And maybe love doesn't always begin with fireworks. Sometimes it starts with broken pieces, picked up gently together.